Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bubble Tea Chats. We're your hosts. I'm Eunice.
And I'm Tiffany.
And today we're going to be talking about moving in with your partner. We're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and also highlight some of our learnings. But before we get started, in honor of our podcast name, Bubble Tea Chats, we're going to share what we're drinking today. So I have the oolong milk tea from Cocoa with pearls, 30% sugar, and warm.
And I'm drinking the QQ milk tea with less ice and 50% sugar. And this was actually my go to in university back then.
Yep. And now that you know what we have and what we're drinking, let's get started. Tiffany, do you want to start with your backstory and why you decided to move out with your partner?
Yeah, for sure. So let me set the scene a little. This was back in 2020, peak COVID times. My partner and I came across each other on Coffee Meets Bagel around June 2020. And then it was a few months later in September 2020 when we became an official couple. And at that time, both him and I were living with roommates in downtown Toronto. And the timing just kind of worked out where it was about, I think it was January 2021, a few months after our relationship became official, that his roommate at that time was going to move out to live with his girlfriend, which meant my partner had to go find a place on his own. And then for me, my lease was going to end around March 2021, just a few months after he had to find a new place. So at this time, even though we're early in our dating stages, it was going really, really well. So we did talk about the potential of moving in together, especially because it was during COVID and we were already basically spending all our time together because you had to social distance from everyone
Right.
else. So when it came to January 2021, my partner started looking for one bedroom places in downtown Toronto. And since those early in our dating stages, he didn't want to automatically assume we were 100% going to move in together, but he wanted to find a place with that thought in the back of his mind that I will most likely move in with him. So we found this really great space for a really great price right in the core of downtown. And the whole moving process for him was really easy. He was already living there. And then when my lease was over in March 2021, I decided to just move into that existing space. Yeah. How about you, Eunice?
So, our we actually met our partner around the same time. So I met my partner in August 2020, so also during COVID, and we also met on a dating app. And we actually moved in together about a year into dating. And the reason why is because I actually ended up buying a unit at that time. And I personally didn't want to live alone. So it's either I move in with a partner or I stay at home and I rent out that unit immediately. But I do remember when I first met my partner, he was actually living on his own in a one bedroom unit by himself for a while. But then after his lease ended, he ended up moving back home. And I remember him saying how he enjoyed living out by himself. So I asked if he was interested in moving in together, and he was interested. So we ended up moving in together. So it was more so about the timing of that, purchasing that unit, and then also him agreeing to it. Because if he wasn't interested, I think we would have both just stayed at home.
Yeah, I think this was a commonality between both of us, where it's really a lot about the timing. Because I think in an ideal timeline, we both may not have moved in with our partners so early on in the relationship because it did feel more risky. But I think just based on the circumstances and timing, it really made us have to decide whether we're going to move in together or not.
Yeah, I was definitely a bit skeptical moving in so early together. Like, we had only known each other for about a year. And ideally, I was thinking I wouldn't move in with someone until at least knowing them for 2 years, maybe. So it was definitely a bit earlier than I had thought. But because of the timing, it just worked out that way.
So, Eunice, before moving in, what were some of your main concerns or what were you most worried about?
So I was most worried about how it would impact our relationship, meaning like because we had only known each other for about a year and then we're moving in together, I was worried that we were jumping into it too quickly. And I've also heard stories about couples after they move in together, the romance might die, like, because before we moved in together, we only saw each other during weekends, and it was more like dates, if I can call it. But I was worried that when we started living together, like, would we not go on dates anymore because we see each other almost every day? So I was kind of worried that that might impact our our relationship long term, and I was like worried that our romantic side might die down earlier because like it was so early moving in together.
Yeah, I definitely was concerned about that too before moving in with my partner. I guess like likewise, we weren't dating for too long before we moved in together, so we were very much still in that honeymoon phase. You know, like we were just getting to know each other. We're having so much fun together. Like we're in that kind of really blissful state where we haven't really come across any serious conflict at that time. So I did worry, like, what would moving in mean? Would we kind of lose that honeymoon stage? Would we take each other's time for granted because we're seeing each other every single day and not really, putting time aside to see that person?
Yeah.
And I also was concerned about, what would happen long term. Like, when you're dating in the early stages, although you might have an inkling that this is your person, you don't really know for 100% yet at that time because you're still getting to know each other. So in my case, I guess there was a little bit less risk because we were both renting. So in the case we broke up, then we just end up in the situation where I have to go find another place to rent. But at the same time, this was both my partner and I's first time living with a partner, even though we've both been in other long-term relationships. So it did feel like a very significant next step.
And personally, for me, it was my first time moving outside from my parents' house. So it was my first time moving out. So another concern of mine was the moving process. But luckily, because there was a start date, we were able to just like slowly move things into the unit. So it actually wasn't so bad. We actually didn't have to rent a moving truck or anything like that. We just slowly moved things into the unit. So it wasn't too bad, but like a funny story is that like the first week we didn't have our mattress yet. So our first week was so bare bones. We had a bed topper that my mom had let us borrow. So we were really on the floor, so it was quite cold and hard.
Oh my goodness.
And we had bar stools because we didn't have a table, so we used our island table as like the kitchen table. And yeah, so it really was for the first week bar stools and the bed topper. That was like that was our bare minimum for the week until our other items had arrived. So I guess it's a pro and a con. It made moving less stressful and less, I guess, than I thought it would have been, like less stressful. But in the beginning, it was quite bare bones. So I guess that's kind of like the trade-off.
Yeah. Honestly, like I think it's a good thing that you didn't have too much to move because at this point I've moved multiple times. Like I moved from Vancouver to Toronto, and within Toronto I moved a couple times, and then I moved from Toronto back to Vancouver. And moving is honestly such a stressful experience, and like I hate it. Takes so much work to like pack up your stuff, and just like the moving process itself is so painful. Unpacking is not fun. So I definitely get what you mean when about being concerned about the moving process. I think for me, like another thing I was worried about, and this seems really silly when I look back on in retrospect, but I think I was concerned about kind of seeing all these like unattractive and gross things about your partner, and being worried about how that might influence my partner's perception of me. So like a silly example is I don't always wash my hair every day. Like sometimes I go for like several days without washing my hair. So, like living with a partner, that means he sees that kind of gross side of me. And also just like sharing a bathroom with your partner. It's, there's like some grossness that comes with sharing a bathroom. So these were like little things I was concerned about. But yeah, that was in the back of my mind for sure when moving in.
Yeah. I think for you and I both, we have had like worries going into moving and going to the next chapter, moving in with our partner. I think on the flip side, we did have some things that we were looking forward to.
For sure.
And for myself, the things I was looking forward to were things that I couldn't do at my parents' house. So, for example, decorating the unit was a highlight for me, something I was like really excited about because living in my parents' house, they've had furniture there for years and years, and wouldn't make sense to like refresh things, and I wasn't allowed to paint the wall either. So like the I couldn't really decorate anything. So I was just like super excited to decorate the unit. I had a whole mood board and everything, and I wanted it to be like Japandi style. So it was like super fun, just like creating that mood board and like picking out pieces. And my partner actually used to be a carpenter, so it was really hard to find a TV cabinet that was Japandi style. So we actually created one together. So it was like birch wood with like rice paper. And yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, I think that's so cool how you're able to actually create custom pieces. Because similar to you, I was really excited about decorating our place as well. I'm like very into design. I don't know if part of it's because like I work as a designer, so it kind of makes sense that I care about the design of my space. But yeah, I also was really into furniture shopping to kind of curate the right pieces for a certain aesthetic. And I find that when you live in certain condos, sometimes like the layout of your room or just, due to like minimize space, like you can't, regular pieces you get from like, let's say IKEA or StrucTube or whatever, it just doesn't fit correctly in a certain space.
Right.
So I am super envious that you're able to create custom pieces. So I think it just adds so much to the space overall.
Yeah, like we measured out the dimensions and the right walkway between the TV and the coffee table, so that was really fun. Yeah, I was, I guess, really lucky that he was able to help create that. Another thing I was looking forward to that I couldn't do at home normally because like my family would take up a lot of the fridge space, and I'm not complaining because in a way it's kind of like a privilege that my mom cooks because it saves a lot of time too. But I was looking forward to cooking my own meals because it allows me the freedom of deciding what to eat, and I feel like I was eating healthier when I could plan my own meals. So like having a protein like rice, whereas like at home and when my mom makes the dinner, it's more like, okay, well, I don't really have a say in what she makes because she's already like giving us the benefit of like cooking for us already. I can't really demand like, hey, I want this, this, this.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so like I liked how there was more control and freedom in what I eat, what goes into my body. So I was really excited about that. And also having friends over too, because like at my parents' house, so I have a big family, and our living room is very like open concept. So if I were to invite anyone, my family would be there too, like sitting right next to you. So it'd be quite awkward. So yeah, I was looking forward to like having friends over, board games, or just like for dinner. So yeah, like basically things I'm not able to do at home was what I was like looking forward to.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think like because I spent some time in my early 20s living with my parents as well, and even though we technically had different floors to separate us, it felt weird inviting your friends over to your parents' space sometimes just because, it's not technically your space. So sometimes you feel like you're inconveniencing your family, right? For me, something I was really looking forward to, and this is like the very practical side of me, was saving money on rent. Because when I was living in Toronto with a roommate, I was paying like around $1,300 for the primary bedroom with its own bathroom. But after moving in with my partner, my rent costs reduced by almost half. So it was really, really
That's
significant.
significant.
Yeah, it was really significant savings, and it helped me just, like have better financial health because honestly, I think when I initially moved to Toronto, I was kind of stretching my budget a little bit with the income I was making at that time.
Right.
So yeah, moving in with a partner definitely helped my finances a lot. And on the less practical side, but more emotional side, I was really excited at the thought of moving in with my partner because for both my partner and I, this was our first time moving in with a significant other. And it felt like a really important and big milestone for us. And I'm so happy that I got to share it with this person. Like I mentioned earlier, our relationship was going really well. We were very much in this blissful honeymoon stage. So of course, like at that time, I was so excited to take this step with my partner, knowing that we could then, hang out all the time and just spend all our time together.
So we talked about things that we expected moving in with a partner. Now let's talk about the harsh reality of moving in with a partner. So I guess I'll start off. Our biggest conflict that we had after we moved in together was actually our financials.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yes. So because we were only dating for a year and then we moved in together, we never really had like a conversation about financials. And so this was our first financial conversation. And it was hard because, to be honest, I don't know who's comfortable talking about financials, but I certainly wasn't super comfortable talking about it. And it was also very difficult to talk about, too. So I would say this is the biggest conflict that we had moving in together because we had to talk about rent, groceries, utilities, and how that was split. So it was really difficult, but it was very important to talk about it early in the relationship. So even though it's hard, I'm glad we got it out of the way early.
Yeah, honestly, I think financials, it's a really awkward, uncomfortable conversation to have for a lot of people, especially when you're in the early stages of dating. It is especially hard to bring it up.
Yeah, because it's also not very sexy. It's like you're dating for a year, you're trying to flirt, and you're like, oh, so how about budgeting?
Yeah, it's like, what debt do you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think if you're going to move in together, having those financial conversations is definitely important. And that's something that also my partner and I didn't really have thorough combos about before actually taking the step to move in together. But after moving together, we had like so many spending, budgeting, just overall financial conversations that are not fun, but very necessary. For me, like one hard part about living together was actually making use of our little space. So in Toronto, we were living in this 400 square foot, apartment. It was very, very tight on space. And my partner is actually a little bit different from other guys I knew because he actually had a fair amount of clothes and he had a lot of shoes because he was actually a sneakerhead.
Right.
So we had like so many sneakers, and a lot of them were like not even worn. Like I think he was waiting to resell.
Oh.
Yeah. So we just did not have enough space for all my stuff and all his stuff. And we actually were butting heads quite a bit when we were doing that initial move in together. And my partner, because he is very, very flexible, lucky for me, he actually ended up moving all his clothes to like the hallway closet. So I got the privilege of having all the bedroom closet space. And then when he wanted to get dressed in the morning, he would have to go outside to the main hallway closet to get his clothes. So in our current place now, so now we actually live in this 2-bedroom condo back in like Metro Vancouver, and we have more space. So luckily our closet fits all our stuff. But what we had issues with in terms of space was our office space. We both work from home. Well, actually now he's like half hybrid, but we both have like a work from home setup. So we initially were sharing like the small bedroom, our second bedroom was used as a small office space that we both crammed our desks into. But over time, it felt like it was getting a bit squishy. It was a bit frustrating when we both had meetings because both of us like to take the room when we have meetings. So eventually, he ended up actually moving his desk into our bedroom. And I'm the one that got to keep this office space, which is actually like the background that you see here. This is my office. So I'm very fortunate that my partner was able to compromise, but we did definitely have conflict about lack of space.
I think another thing I'd like to add is that I think I would have had more conflicts if my partner worked from home as well. So we moved into a 1-bedroom unit, and because I was working from home and he wasn't, I think that helped in terms of like butting heads. I think if we were both working from home, I think there would have been way more issues because I think, to be honest, I think I might go crazy a little bit if I saw him every single day and like in 1-bedroom apartment as well. I think with 2 offices and a 1-bedroom for my situation wouldn't have been great. So that's why I don't think we were butting heads that much because I didn't really see him in the house that much.
No, but I do think that makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I had quite a lot of conflict with my partner about was actually figuring out the division of household labor. I noticed that my partner and we both don't really, for example, love to cook. I think we enjoy it from time to time, but we're naturally not like great cooks. So when it comes to like, oh, whose turn is it to cook, we don't really have defined rules. So there's often times where it's a weekday, it's 9 p.m., and like no one has made dinner, and there's just no dinner to be had. So that's cooking is like one aspect, but also things like cleaning. We definitely had conflict over cleaning as well. So my partner is the type of person that likes to do daily cleans, where for me, I like to do a bigger sweep, which means I am comfortable letting some mess pile up before I'm like, okay, it's time to clean and let's do a thorough clean together. So we definitely butt heads in this way. And another thing is that because he does all these daily cleans, he feels like I'm taking it for granted because I don't recognize his efforts because he's doing these small things every day. So we definitely had some fights there. And honestly, I grew up in a household where my dad was a little bit OCD about cleaning. So he never let me clean anything. Like I never vacuumed, like barely washed the dishes. Like I didn't do that much house chores growing up as a
That's
child.
really lucky. I had to wash dishes every night.
I think that's so normal. And I feel like that probably trained you to kind of like when you move out, that's like a normal thing to do.
Right.
I remember because my dad was so OCD about cleaning, like I didn't realize my hair shedded so much. Because as a child, my dad actually went to my bathroom every day and cleaned up all the hair.
Right.
So when I first moved out, and I actually first moved out for university, like I didn't realize that my hair could accumulate so much on the bathroom floor, and it's actually like pretty gross.
I think it's a normal girl problem because I'm like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think anyone with long hair like
Especially
has that
on
issue.
white tiles too, because so we actually live in the same building, and so our bathroom tiles are white, and it was so obvious when our hair is on the floor. So I think I was like shocked about that too when I knew about it, but it's just that it was way more obvious now on the tile.
Yeah.
And in terms of like chores for my partner I think like it just naturally came into place. We never actually had a formal conversation about splitting chores and everything, but because he wasn't working from home, I ended up doing the cooking and cooking dinner because by the time I wait for him to come home, it would be too late, and we would be like way too hungry already. So I think the roles came very natural. So since I was working from home, I was able to start cooking dinner early. Then he would be able to come home and we'll be able to eat together. And so naturally, because I was doing more of the cooking, he ended up doing more of the cleaning, which I find is more of his forte. So it kind of worked out because it like cleaning is not something I prefer either. So I think it worked out on our end.
Did he do the cleaning for like most of your place? Like all the vacuuming, cleaning bathrooms as well? Or do you just mean like cleaning the kitchen after you cook?
Cleaning kitchen after I cook, and then also the bathroom. So the bathroom,
Ooh.
I don't think I ever really cleaned the bathroom, but like I would help clean the floor in the living room and the bedroom, but he's more so in charge of the bathroom and then the dishes afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really lucky that you guys had, almost like different strengths of what you're good in. You kind of like played to those strengths. I think for our partner and I, one of the reasons we have conflict is that like we're kind of like in the middle about a lot of things. Like for most chores, it's not like we love it, but we may not hate it. So it's funny because my brother-in-law gave me this interesting advice because he's been married for like 10 years at this point. And he told my partner and I to basically write down all the list of possible chores and then like rank them from like the things you hate the most to the things you can tolerate better. And then ideally, if you cross compare your list with your partner, you can find things that maybe you hate, but your partner doesn't mind so much. So they can take on those chores. And you can take on other chores that you don't mind, but maybe they hate. But I've realized this only really works if your partner has like different preferences from you. Because if you're the same, you're going to be like fighting over the same chores.
Yeah, I think one thing I can think off the top of my head too, one thing I really didn't like to do is to take the trash out.
Oh my gosh, same! I hate it.
But luckily my partner doesn't mind it. He actually has a schedule for himself because like in our apartment, the elevator is more free. I think most apartments too. It's more free at night. So his strategy is that he always goes like after like at the very end of the day. And like I don't know if he loves it, but he doesn't mind it. It's more kind of like a walk for him. to just
Oh,
be like,
okay.
okay, well, it's that time.
Yeah, I've actually noticed because I've surveyed my other friends in their
Mm-hmm.
relationship of like, who takes out the trash more. And stereotypically it does tend to be like the guy in heterosexual relationships of, they're the ones taking the trash out. But the funny thing is like my partner kind of complains to me how, oh, like why do I have to take the trash out all the time? And I'm just I don't know, like I just really hate it. So I'm just like, oh, can you just do it? But we both don't like it, so it's a little conflict we have as well, actually.
Sometimes we actually end up going together, especially when we have a lot of trash and we
Oh, and
need two people.
recycling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
recycling. We would go together, but like on days when it only requires one person, I would say it's usually my partner. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I guess maybe one compromise is doing it together.
Yeah, no, we
Because to be
definitely do it
honest,
together
yeah,
sometimes.
with all the like mixed materials too, I think two like four hands would be helpful.
Yeah. I actually miss so back in Toronto when my partner and I were living together in a condo, a lot of apartments in Toronto actually had trash chutes from each floor.
That's nice.
Yeah, so it made a big difference because you didn't have to go all the way down to like the bottom floor to take out your garbage. You literally would just like step into the hallway, shove your trash into the trash chute, and then you're like done. So I actually really miss that part about Toronto because
That's
I
so
feel like here
convenient.
it's pretty rare to find that.
And was the Toronto building like new or was
Yeah,
it
it was new.
interesting? Because I find that here in Vancouver, our apartments, yeah, it's really rare to see those trash chutes. But recently, my friend got a place that is a slightly older apartment, and his place has a trash chute too. So I'm thinking like maybe like in Vancouver, like after like I don't know what year, but they decided to stop doing it. But it seems like the older buildings do have them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, honestly, I wish I still had them. But I understand the maintenance for those trash chutes must be pretty, like, it's a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so those were some of the harsh realities we face moving in with our partners. But of course, there are also a lot of good things that come with moving in with your partner as well. So, Eunice, what are some of the best parts about living with your partner?
The best part living with my partner is definitely feeling like less lonely. So I guess like yeah, I don't think I would have ever moved out by myself. So to double down on that, it was like nice to share these experiences with someone. So I through moving out together, I feel like there were a lot of firsts for me and it was nice to build that core memory with my partner as well. So for example, this was like the first time I actually had to change like a ceiling light. So the one above the kitchen. And even though I wasn't doing anything much, like I wasn't doing the work, but just being there and like just seeing it be changed was really interesting. And how we had to turn off the electricity so no one gets like electrocuted. And it's so interesting to see that the wires have to match this one, that wire has matched that one. Like I guess yeah, I didn't have to experience that before. So there were a lot of firsts, and it was nice to share that memory with my partner. And even some mundane tasks can be like something like that can be really like an interesting experience with someone else as opposed to being by yourself and handling all that on your own. So that was really memorable for me.
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean by like how certain mundane things are just a lot more interesting or more fun when you're living with your partner. Because I think when you're living with your partner, it's essentially like living with your best friend, right? Like you can do really like any mundane task together, and it kind of feels like you're spending quality time together. It's kind of funny because for my partner and I think grocery shopping is something that we always, like 99% of the times, we always do together. And then recently I learned that one of my friends, her partner actually refuses to go grocery shopping with her because he thinks it's an inefficient use of time. He rather like maybe he goes like on the way back from work, he stops by the grocery shop, picks something up, or she does the grocery shopping on her own. So that shocked me because I just assumed all couples grocery shop together. Because growing up in my household, that's what my parents always did as well.
I'm kind of surprised too because I also enjoy like the grocery like shopping that we do together. Because for me also it's like time outside of the house. I think because also I was like working from home a lot, so and I didn't. We had one parking space, so my partner would use that for his car, and he needs it for work. So in a way, I'm kind of like not trapped, but I don't really go too far from the apartment. So it's nice whenever we go on grocery shopping trips because it's like, oh, kind of like, yay, we're going out kind of thing. It becomes a bit fun. Yeah. I wonder for that friend, what would he be doing if like his partner ended up going on shopping trips?
I'm actually not sure. Like maybe he would be cleaning or doing something more fun, like maybe playing video games.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, I think he just saw it as like not a good use of both their time. Like I think maybe he didn't enjoy grocery shopping that much, and that's why he didn't want to do it together. Yeah, but I definitely like that's something I really treasure in my relationship is doing these like mundane tasks together. I
Yeah.
think another thing about living together is like the emotional support you give, or sorry, the emotional support that you give and get, like from and for your partner. Like, for example, if you're having a bad day at work or maybe something happened with a friend, like I know typically your partner may be a call away, but I think when you're living in the same space, you get that immediate support. And it, you know, to me, that really makes a big difference in like my happiness and quality of life.
And on that similar line of thought about the emotional support, me and my partner, we actually ended up getting COVID together. Like,
Oh my gosh.
so it wasn't like a fun experience. It was like early 2021, and it was our first time getting COVID, and it was like peak COVID time. So we were like dead for like a whole week. But I was glad we were there for each other, like emotionally, because I think during COVID, it was already so isolated. So I feel like if I were to quarantine by myself, I would, I don't know, I would go a bit like crazy and like bored. But it was nice to get that emotional support with my partner because we were both sick, we were both quarantined, so we were able to be isolated together. And yeah, I think I was also glad that we were moved out at that point because one worry I had during COVID was like getting COVID and then like making my family members sick. So I'm glad at that time we were already moved out. So it's not like I had to isolate in one room. We had like the whole unit. So a bit more space for us to roam around. And yeah, and just being there for each other, even though we were both like really, really sick at that point. But it was just nice to have someone there when we were both going through a really bad time.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first got COVID. Luckily, my partner didn't get COVID from me. I don't know how.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't
How
know
did that
how.
work? Did you guys like have separate rooms?
No. Like, I think when I got COVID, he just assumed that he would get COVID. So we
Yeah.
didn't really bother isolating. We just isolated from other people. But magically, and he took a test every day because he was kind of expecting to get COVID. He never got COVID. But I know what you mean. Where like having COVID, it sucks. Like you feel awful. And having someone there to just even like emotionally support you.
Yeah.
I guess for you, it might have been different because for me, because my partner wasn't sick, he was still able to like cook for me and like do things. And it was really nice having that support when you felt so awful.
Yeah. For my situation it's more like even though we're both sick, who is less sick to be able to make soup or whatever. So every day it was a bit different depending on the energy level and how we were feeling.
I think another good thing I want to highlight about moving in with your partner is just being able to kind of split finances and also just responsibilities in the household. I know I mentioned earlier that finances was something I was really looking forward to in terms of moving in with a partner because I understood how much money you can save. And after moving in, I can verify that yes, you save a lot of money on rent, groceries, internet, etc. And it does really make a significant difference over time. But in terms of, you know, sharing responsibilities, one example my partner and I have is that we actually got a dog together when we, a couple years ago. This is when we moved back to Vancouver. We decided to get a dog shortly after. And I know there are people out there that, you know, raise a dog on their own. But honestly, I think having a partner and doing it together, it just made such a big difference to me, especially in the early stages of having a puppy when you're trying to potty train, you're not sleeping much. It can be really stressful and overwhelming. But when you have someone to share those responsibilities with, you know, it makes really significant difference. So honestly, I think if it wasn't for my partner, I wouldn't be able to have the dog I have today. So I'm really glad we're able to, you know, share those responsibilities.
Yeah, having a dog, it does require a lot of work. I personally don't have dog, but I have a cat, and they're really independent. So I can only imagine, like, oh, okay, how much more work it would be on top of having a cat, because with dogs, there's definitely a way more responsibilities you need to do. I guess maybe also because my cat is an outdoor cat, so
Oh yeah,
she's
that makes
very
a big
independent.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and one more thing I'd like to highlight that was a great thing that came out of moving out with my partner is that it helped speed up the progression of our relationship because it helped us get a better understanding of the other person and to think if to envision what it's like living together. So it really helped with that, and it for the most part it was definitely a positive for us because our main issue, or not issue but conflict, was the financials, but everything else it was pretty smooth sailing. So I can definitely see us like moving in like together like long term.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I felt like moving in together really sped up our relationship and really made us analyze and think about whether this was the person that we could potentially spend the rest of our lives with. I think when you're dating, you're seeing each other like maybe between 1 to 3 times a week typically. But when you're living together with someone, you really, really get to know them really fast. You get to know all their little quirks, all their habits, all like the annoying things, but also you learn all the things you love about them as well. So I think for my partner and I, we also had a really positive experience where although we definitely did have conflict, but living together, we're able to work through some of these conflicts and really make me view him and I as a team. And that kind of gave me reassurance about our future together.
So now that we have the hard part out of the way, what were some things that you learned that were interesting about either yourself or your partner?
I think something that was really highlighted for me when living with my partner is some differences in our personality. So I think overall, my partner and I are more similar than we are different. But one thing that is very different about us is that my partner really likes to spend a lot of his time relaxing and chilling. Like after his 9 to 5, he wants to kind of decompress, relax. So he might like go to the gym, but he also wants to spend time watching movies or reading things on Reddit or just, doing whatever that's chill. Whereas for me, I kind of feel this need to be like productive all the time. Whereas if I watch too much Netflix, I will then feel guilty. So I like to have different projects and hobbies going on outside of my 9 to 5. So I feel like I'm like constantly doing something. And it's kind of funny because not that we have major conflict, but there have been times where it just felt like my partner was like doing nothing while I was doing all these different things. So it's just kind of funny because I think living together, you really notice these differences between you and your partner. And that was probably one of the major things highlighted for me. What about you?
I think through living together, I also noticed some differences between my partner and I. So I guess this is like a funny example, but when I cook, say like baking chicken thighs, I would follow a recipe and follow the temperature to set the oven at, and also how long to bake it for. Now, my partner likes. It seems like he likes to wing things. So whenever it comes with recipes, like baking chicken thighs, he would like sprinkle some seasoning that we have, whatever we have, and instead of googling the recipe, like what to set the oven at and like for how long, he would kind of like wing it. He'll be like, okay, well, I don't know, like he would just put it in the oven, set it for a usual time, like 350 degrees. And even for the time, it was more so kind of like, oh, he thinks it's going to take like 10 or 15 minutes. So he kind of times it at that. And so he would put the chicken in the oven. And after 10 or 15 minutes, pull it out. And I remember cutting into it. And it was like totally raw.
Oh no.
So I thought it was really funny because then, so I would ask because I didn't see him doing all this. I was like, oh, did you like Google like what temperature to put it at and like how long? And he's like, nope, he just winged it. And so maybe he's trying to channel his inner chef energy, and he thinks that, okay, this feels like, around 10, 15 minutes. Because I know, like, I don't know, I guess, like, chefs, they're feeling what kind of seasoning to put. And, like, it's like, this looks like 375 degrees or something. So maybe he's trying to do something like that. But I noticed he does that a lot when it comes to cooking. But for me, I like to follow a recipe.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like to like follow recipes very precisely,
Yeah.
actually.
Because I want to make sure it's cooked. But like, for example, like on a less intense scale, like even like with like frying eggs or frying anything, like whatever seasoning we'll have, he'll just like sprinkle stuff here and there. And yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. That's a difference that we had. So I learned that he's not super great at cooking, but he's working on it.
At least he tries. I think you
Yes.
gotta give him credit for trying.
Yes.
There's definitely some people out there that just say they can't cook and just hands up, like they don't even try. So
Yeah. And I know he has interest in becoming a better cook. So that's nice. Another interesting thing that I learned after moving out with my partner, and this one was really shocking to me, but how many times he needs to use the washroom a day, as in like pooping, like bowel movements,
wait, how many times does he need to use it a day?
like 3 to 5 times.
5 is a lot. Like I feel like that's almost concerning.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like it might be some food intolerance because I know he's a little bit lactose intolerant. But I remember it being so shocking because so we lived in the 1 bedroom apartment, and sometimes when I would like look up or look for him, I don't see him anywhere in the living room or the bedroom. And most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, when I am looking for him, he's on the toilet. So I think that was really shocking for me. And at first I'm like, is this a normal thing for guys? And then like it's interesting because recently I saw a YouTube like skit video, and this girl was making this short about how her boyfriend's always on the toilet.
Oh my gosh.
She'll be like calling, "Oh, where are you?" And then the boyfriend would be like, "I'm on the toilet," and I'm like, "Oh, is this common?" So that was really interesting. Now I'm like, I wonder.
Okay,
how many times.
now I'm gonna be hyper aware of how often my partner uses the bathroom because I don't think it was anything concerning for me. But now I'm curious. I'm curious now.
Yeah. Another thing I was surprised to learn about, and this one is about myself, was how comfortable I was with sharing the bathroom because we only had one bathroom, and so we would both be using it at the same time. So, for example, one person could be showering and one person could be on the toilet. And like, I was surprised how comfortable I was with that because normally, like, I guess, like, for some girls, they wouldn't want to fart either, right? But here I am, a year in dating, and we're like on the toilet.
Wait, was this so right when you moved in? This happened, or did it happen over time?
Right when we moved in.
Oh, like did
Yeah.
you guys talk about it? Like how did you come to the agreement that this was acceptable?
No, I think it naturally happened. I actually not sure, but maybe also in my household, we don't really close the door.
Oh, what? In your family home?
Yes. So like in my family home, okay, when we shower, we do close the door. It's more so when we use the toilet, we don't close the door.
Wait, why? I need to understand why. Because my partner and I are the opposite of Eunice and her partner. Like, we have very strict rules on what is acceptable. So even if I'm taking a quick pee, nope, door is closed, you're not coming in. Like, there's been times where my partner and I, we kind of like tease each other, where if one person's in the bathroom, we'll like jiggle the door a bit to kind of like threaten the person. And the other person always freaks out. Because we have these really, I don't know, like these strict boundaries of just like, I don't know why it's so uncomfortable for us.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think maybe also so for my family, we're like I have all sisters. So it's really all girls in the house except for my dad. So when my dad is not home, like because we were all the same gender, we just use the toilet without closing the door. Except for showering. But yeah, I was also still quite surprised how comfortable it is, like moving out with my partner. And then it also applied to the same situation because I didn't think it would be like that, to be honest. But it was just natural. And I think, yeah, because maybe also because we only had one washroom and like it's more productive if like two people can be using it at the same time if they're not using one thing. So like I don't know if one person needs to wash their hand and someone's on the toilet. Well, I think it's more efficient if we were both in the washroom. So yeah, we actually barely closed the washroom door.
Yeah, I get what you mean when you only have one bathroom. Although now I'm thinking back, because in Toronto, my partner and I only had one bathroom as well. But like, we just made do. Like, if one person's in the bathroom and the other person needs to use it, we're just like banging on the door, asking
Oh.
when the person's done to kind of rush them to hurry up. Like, the thought never even occurred to me that we could both be using the bathroom at the same time. Like, I never even considered that thought.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, when you're talking about banging at the door, I'm like, oh yeah, we never did that. We just
I mean,
opened
the
the
door
door.
was open.
The door's open, or like we just opened the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very funny, though. Okay, so we talked a lot about our experiences moving in with our partners. Let's talk about how our relationships are now since moving in together years ago. So, for my relationship, my partner and I were actually married now. We got married August 2023, so pretty recently. Eunice was at our wedding and everything. So I guess moving in together, like I mentioned, really did speed up the progress of our relationship and kind of confirm for us that we're the right person for each other. So it naturally made sense to make that next step to get married because this is something that we both wanted. Honestly, in terms of the division of household labor, it's still a work in progress for us. We're still trying to find the optimal things that work for us. Like we're still getting into little arguments here and there about that. We haven't reached the point where we have strict rules and structure of like, oh, you cook on these days, I cook on this day. You clean the toilet this week, I clean the toilet the next week. We haven't really went to that extent because I think we're trying to find a way where we don't have to be so strict because we don't really we're both more like laid back people in general, I would say. So that's still a work in progress. But otherwise, we're really happy. And I think moving in together was a really good decision for us. How about you?
For me, so my partner and I, we actually ended up moving out and back to our parents' house about like a year after we moved in together. And so we're still dating now. But so after moving in together and us having that financial conversation, we realized we wanted to save for a larger space because at that time we were two grown up adults living in one bedroom apartment. So that's definitely why we decided to move out was to save. But that transition was a little bit weird, and I guess a lot of family and friends would question or were concerned about our relationship because in a way it felt like we were progressing backward. Like it wasn't really like a normal progression where you move in together and then you get engaged and get married. So similar to what Tiffany went through. In my case, in a way, it's kind of like a step backwards. So I would get a lot of questions or concerns. But we did what was best for us at that situation because we do know that we want to move into a larger space. And when we were having that financial conversation, really the only way we could do that and achieve that goal is if we were to save money. And a large chunk of that we can save was if we move back to our parents' house and save on that rent money. So we did what was best for us at the time. And it worked out because we had a goal in mind, which was moving out together into a larger space. So I would say if anyone is kind of going through that situation or feel like they're going backwards in their relationship, just know that it's important to go at your own pace. And as long as you have a goal in mind, I guess don't worry about what the natural progression is. It's very important to go at your own pace.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about going at your own pace. For pace, that was something that I was a little bit self-conscious about too, because I think the timeline of when my, I guess now husband, and I were dating to moving in together to getting married, I think some people maybe felt it was fast, but that's what felt right for us. It made sense, like not only logically, but also emotionally as well. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of truth in like not really caring too much about outside what other people think about, your pace in your relationship, because it really just comes down to you and your partner. And that's really all that should matter. Yeah, well, I think that wraps up our episode for today. Thank you so much for tuning into Bubble Tea Chats. If you haven't moved out with your partner yet, we hope you found some of our experiences helpful. And if you are moved out, maybe you found some of what we said relatable. Feel free to share your experiences down in the comments below. We would love to hear from you guys.
Cheers.
Cheers!